Hey everybody, this is Workforce Gaming. I'm Doug, along with Brad.
Hello.
So another sale happened. So when there's a sale, we end up buying a bunch of games of, that are like kind of like newer releases that have been sort of dropped in price. I think one of the big ones that me and you had been looking at for, I think for a while. I remember when the first trailer came out, we were both kind of like, "Ooh, this looks kind of cool." Was Adrift.
Yeah, with a one
Now
in it.
with a one in it. Does that make? I don't know. We'll talk about it later. So Adrift is basically, from what I could tell, is like a game where you're in a spacesuit and you go around a space station, and that was all I got from it. So like beyond that, what is Adrift?
It's Gravity,
It's gra-
the
oh,
movie.
the movie Gravity.
Yeah, basically, you wake up and the whole space station's in a bunch of pieces, and you're floating around in your spacesuit. And it's pretty much revealed right away that you're basically the last survivor of this giant space station destruction that you don't necessarily know what happened to at the moment,
Yeah,
and you need to try and get to the escape ship pod thing.
the escape ship. Okay, is it?
And that's your goal for the game, is to get to the escape pod. Now, the way the game plays out is basically, to do this, you need to restart every system on the ship because you need to restore life support and gravity and all the other whatevers you need to restore to get the ship to work.
Yeah,
So before we get too much further into that, the game is basically, it's essentially a walking simulator,
yeah,
which I use that term lovingly because I love those
yeah.
games.
Hmm.
I know some people are like, oh, you don't do it. I love those games personally. So I am coming at it from that perspective. So if you're the type that's just like, you just walk around and see stuff, that's horrible. It's not for you. Completely.
Yeah.
Not for you. If you're the type that likes those, finish listening to the review. But basically, so you're in a spaceship, and the game starts out, the first hour of this game, I was pretty much convinced this was going to be one of my favorite games ever after the
Oh,
first hour.
really?
Because you're in an environment. I am a huge space nerd. Like, I love this kind of crap. Like, if it's set in
Yeah.
space, I'm there instantly. I don't care. You don't need to give me any other backstory. It's space. Cool. Got it. What am I doing? Let's
Yeah.
go. But the way the game controls, because you're in, you see them kind of they use them in movies all the time. I can never think of the name of them. But the space suit where you kind of like have your like little jetpack thing on, you kind of like float one way, and you use like a little bit of push to get you to start moving one way,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you start using a little bit of push to go the other way. So really, when you're controlling the character, you pretty much just push forward and it shoots you forward, and then because you're in 0G the whole time, your character just drifts forward.
Oh,
And
you're.
then
Would you say
and then
you were adrift?
I would, I might say that. But so for a lot of the game, you're just kind of drifting forward, right? So you hit it, you drift forward. You've got your shoulder buttons control your roll, so you can roll left and right. You go back, forward, all that kind of stuff. But the way it controls really is heavy, and you bump into a lot of crap as you're playing this, which is really cool because you'll be like, no, 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 and then you just kind of smack into it and bounce off, which is kind of cool. That's the one thing I will say about this is the controls in this. I'm playing The Last Guardian. It's kind of like that, where the controls are really cool contextually, but in
Yeah.
terms of gameplay are horrible. Just because you don't really have full control of yourself because you're in 0G, you're kind of this big clunky thing floating around. So it's really cool that way. In addition to that, basically the game functions on an oxygen meter because your suit needs oxygen, obviously. So as you're floating around, there's little stations that you can plug into and you can grab little things. But because you're in 0G, again, it's really hard to maneuver your character to get to these little bottles of oxygen. And the character animation is kind of cool because it'll just like reach out and like try and like smack stuff. And like as you're floating away, like you'll see the fingers like start to like wiggle at it, like it's trying really hard to reach the bottle.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
really neat, yeah, it's just this really neat little detail that I really like latched onto right away. And just that feeling of floating around is done so well. I think it's either Vive or Rift. I don't know which one, but you can play it in VR. Obviously, we're PlayStation for the most part, the two of us. So
Yeah.
my PSVR doesn't have that option. And I looked to see if maybe it was coming, but the studio got shut down after it was released. So probably
Oh,
not happening.
oof. Did not know that.
Yeah. But if you're playing in VR, I can't even imagine how cool this would be. But
Mm.
that first hour, just getting the sense of the ship and getting that feeling of floating around in space, because there is nothing. Every now and then you'll get like a radio communication from Earth that, because your communications are down, you can't respond to. So it'll be just like, are there anyone up there, like this kind of thing, and just there's nothingness the whole time, which is really
Yeah.
cool. And because the space station's exploded, like you'll venture out of a part and you can kind of look around, and like if you tilt the other way, you just see nothing in front of you except for like distant stars and stuff. So it's really cool
That's pretty.
atmospherically.
Yeah.
Um,
Is it
but
is
yeah,
it just that is it just like that basic through line though? Of like you need to go part one, part two, part three, like get to these different aspects of the ship. Because I think these, I guess these walking simulator sort of stuff, like one of the big things that kind of draws you through it is the story. It's like I
yep,
think that's one of those big things that these games always have. It's like a really strong story or really strong characters in case of like Firewatch or something like that,
yep,
where it's like that thing driving you is either that story aspect or it's something very visually interesting or a
yep,
combination of those things. So does it have that sort of
nope,
aspect, or
nope.
you saying no?
I am saying no.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying. This game, if looking at it from just coming into it and putting me in that setting and the way the game functions
Yeah.
is great. So that first hour where you're just kind of exploring this world, trying to get a sense of where you are and where you're going and what you're doing is awesome. It's fantastic. We talked about it a couple times when we did VR reviews of that first 5 minutes of getting you in a game, of getting you in the suit, of getting you in the mindset of I am here. The game is
Yeah.
great. Where it breaks down is that through line.
Okay.
Because basically what you do is you go to the central command, it tells you the life support is down, and then it directs you to the life support, and you float your way through space to the life support. You go and you flip the switch for life support. It gives you a key to go plug in to turn the system on. You plug the key in. You go back to the central command. It says, "Oh no, we need gravity now." And you go, "Okay, where are the gravity things?" It goes this way, and then you go to the gravity
Oh,
thing. And after the second one, you realize I'm doing the exact same thing over and over again. And because of the environment, because it is just you are in a crashed spaceship, the environment never changes, your goal never changes, your objective never changes. Everything just looks the same and feels the same for the
gotcha.
duration of the game. And this is a little bit longer, I think, than a lot of walking simulators. I feel like normally those cap at about 2.5 hours,
Yeah, two, three, maybe something like that. Yeah.
somewhere like that. This one pushes closer to the four.
Gotcha.
And again, just because there's no change happening, you really run into the spot of, okay, this gets boring. And that's coming from somebody who loves Everybody's Gone to the Rapture and loves Soma and loves these other Vanishing of Ethan Carter, all these other walking simulator games. But
Hmm.
with all those, they change where you are, right? Ethan
Yeah, yeah.
Carter, you're in the town, you're in the woods, yeah, Ethan Carter or Everybody's Gone to Rapture, they both have very similar environments. But this one, you're always just in the crashed spaceship, and all of the hallways look the same, and all of the big rooms look the same, and all the computers look the same, and there's just
Yeah.
never anything driving you forward. The story hints at a little bit as you go, and you can collect audio logs, of course, and it hints a little bit more about what's going on in the space station, but none of it's ever really to the point where it's like, oh man, what's going on there? It's a lot of like, oh, they were transferring off the station. Oh, they
Gotcha.
had a
Yeah.
kid. And then there's a
It's
little bit of
pretty
like what
standard as far
happened.
as that sounds pretty standard as far as audio logs go. Like, oh, I miss my child
Yes.
who I wish I could see tomorrow
Yes.
for his birthday, and like the dead body's like floating there. It's like you're not gonna see him for his birthday, Joe. I'm sorry.
I I almost feel like you've played the game because that would describe about half of them. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's really again that's where it loses it. It's just there's never enough to draw you forward, and that initial feeling is great for about an hour, and then once you get over it and you kind of understand it,
Yeah.
you need that piece to draw you forward, and it's just not there in this. Even trying to figure out what's happening, you get enough clues from the audio logs and a couple other pieces early on that you're like, okay, I know it's this
And yeah.
relatively early. So
Because I
yeah.
think even Gone Home, I think has like a really like that game is like walking simulator, like, but like that is just
Ooh, I
like a
love
really
Gone Home.
you're in the house the whole time, but it does have that sort of like through line of story. But yeah, if you're missing that, you can't. I feel like that genre like you just can't do unless you have that hook.
Yeah, and that's what it's missing. The gameplay in terms of like I said, like the gameplay and the environment terms of walking simulators is top notch.
Yeah.
It's just that through line that you're missing.
Oh, okay. All right. Dang, I was thinking of picking this up, but I don't know. Maybe let's wait for well, what's that? What's the that big one? Edith Finch to drop in price because that one I'm
Yeah.
really excited for. All right, we are Workforce Gaming. If you guys like what you heard, you can follow us on at Workforce Gaming on Twitter, or you can follow or subscribe to us on YouTube. We'll see you guys next week.
So yeah.